And the state constitutions all have bills of rights. Why do you need a federal bill of rights? It would be dangerous, Hamilton says. That's not one of the more often cited Federalist papers, right? But that's his attitude. So how do we get the Bill of Rights? Well, look at that sheet I gave you. This is the process of ratification. And if you look at that, some very interesting things come out. Very quickly, the Constitution was ratified in states where there was a lot of support for it. Delaware, New Jersey, Georgia, Connecticut, boom, 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 boom. Pennsylvania is one of those early ratifiers. But if you're an anti-federalist in Pennsylvania, you are really angry because that ratification convention happened so quickly, you didn't even know there was a constitution. There are anti-federalist riots in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and in Hagerstown, Maryland, because of what happens in Pennsylvania. It's railroaded through. And the people in the western part of Pennsylvania don't have the opportunity to marshal their forces. Right? And then, once you get to Massachusetts, you begin to see the Constitution is being debated. You know, ratification is slowing down as it's coming up in states where people are taking issue. Massachusetts, a very large ratification convention, and a very narrow margin of victory there. Virginia and New York. North Carolina doesn't even ratify it the first time. It's the only state that says, thanks, but no thanks. We already got it. Right? We don't need this. And then Rhode Island, God bless Rhode Island. Rhode Island doesn't want anything to do with it and doesn't convene a ratification convention until the rest of the nation pretty much tells them, you're on your own. And so they convene a ratification convention, and this still only passes by a margin of 2. So this was not a given. This was not the Ten Commandments, delivered from on high. This was closely debated and hotly contested. And if you look at those 3 key states, Massachusetts, Virginia, and New York, the margin of victory in those 3 key states is about 5%. 32 votes out of 580 cast decide the fate of the Constitution in the United States. That is remarkably close, and it tells you something about the power of the anti-federalist arguments. To wrap up, I would simply point out to you that many people today, when they talk about the Constitution, actually talk about it in an anti-federalist frame of mind. For example, the one part of the Constitution all of us can quote from, other than the preamble, we the people, right, which we memorize as school children, is the Bill of Rights, right? I know what my kid knows what it means when he takes the fifth, right? The Second Amendment is certainly, everybody knows what the Second Amendment is because gun rights are such an issue in our contemporary society. Right? Ask people about Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, they, a very foggy idea. But people know what the Bill of Rights are. That I know what my rights are, right? And that is because the anti-federalists fought tooth and nail to have a Bill of Rights attached to the Constitution. People who talk about, the Tea Party and the rise of the Tea Party movement and this emphasis on small government and the federal government has become too distant and too powerful and it has its nose involved in too many things, is interfering in my liberty and my freedom. It's a real anti-federalist argument they're making. It's not the argument that Madison and Hamilton are making in the Federalist Papers when they're saying the federal government needs to have this power. The federal government needs to be energetic. It needs to be able to act directly on the people. Rather, it's an anti-federalist argument that's saying that government is best, which I can watch most closely. I trust my dog catcher more than I trust my state representative. I trust my state representative more than I trust my senator. I trust my senator more than I trust the president. Why? Because at each one of those levels, that person gets farther away from me. Right? If my dog catcher has his hand in my pocket, if he knows if he's doing something dirty, I'm going to find out about it much more quickly than I'm going to find out about it if it's my state representative or my, senator or president. I will close with just this little snippet from the Massachusetts ratification debates because I think it's actually very hopeful and instructive for our bitterly divided partisan times. Whenever I talk about ratification, always in the back of my mind is this kind of gridlock and nasty, nasty partisanship that's part of our contemporary political culture. And I think about this. I think about this debate going on in Massachusetts. And if they could do it, then certainly we ought to be able to do it, right? And listen to this. Amos Singletary, an anti-federalist. These lawyers and men of learning and moneyed men who talk so finely and gloss over matters so smoothly, to make us poor, illiterate people swallow down the pill. They expect to get into Congress themselves. They expect to be the managers of this Constitution, and to get all the power and all the money into their own hands, and they will swallow up all of us little folks, just as the whale swallowed up Jonah. He's got Madison's number. He's got Hamilton's number. These guys were in the first Congress, right? They were in the first administration. They were taking the reins of government. And then Jonathan Smith, a Federalist, responding to Singletary's speech. These lawyers, these moneyed men, these men of learning, are all embarked in the same cause with us. And we must swim or sink together. And shall we throw the Constitution overboard because it does not please us all alike? Some gentlemen say, don't be in a hurry. Take time to consider, and don't take a leap in the dark. I say, take things in time. Gather fruit when it is ripe. There is a time to sow and a time to reap. We sowed our seeds when we sent men to the Federal Convention. Now is the harvest. Now is the time to reap the fruit of our labor. And if we don't do it now, I'm afraid we shall never have another opportunity. Very, very inspiring words, right? Neither one of these men got up and told the other one he wasn't born in Massachusetts, at least university. Neither one of his men said he was anti-American, he was the son of the devil. In fact, they seem to have a rather civil debate going on here. And if you look at the final tally there, it was pretty darn close, right? And in that sense, I think we can certainly learn a lot by revisiting this issue of ratification. All right, I will stop right there and gladly take your questions. Yes?
What was the, you might say, voting population?
What percentage of the population was voting?
Was able to vote?
Yes. Well, let's see. It depends where you are, okay? Most states, at the time of independence, well, all states, all colonies had property requirements to vote. And in some colonies, those were low enough that a large majority of the adult male population voted. This is true in New England. The further south you move, the smaller it gets. And so as you get into the slaveholding states or colonies of Virginia, South Carolina, and so forth, that would probably shrink to about 30% of adult males. Of course, no women are voting, no people under the age of 21 are voting, no people who are servants, slaves, any kind of dependent status voting. You have to own property, and it has to be a certain amount. After independence is declared and the states write their constitutions, all of the states lower those property requirements to vote. Pennsylvania is the most radical. It eliminates the property requirement altogether. It says as long as you pay taxes, you can vote. Right? But the other states keep them. And so I would say that if you're looking for a rough total of adult white males across the board, probably about 40% to 50% are voting at this time. When the states convene their ratification conventions to debate the Constitution, several states temporarily abolish property requirements to vote, because this is we the people. Of course, it's not the women and it's not the slaves and the servants and so forth, but they temporarily abolish it. The idea being we need as wide a representation as possible to discuss this government.
Was there a set number of colonies that had to vote yay for this union to come
Yeah,
into effect?
9 of the 13 states had to vote yes in order for the Constitution to become law, to take effect. That's written right into, I believe it's Article 5, right? So 9 of the 13. The interesting thing is, if you look at your, you look at that chart there, right? New Hampshire is the 9th state, and New Hampshire votes when New York and Virginia's ratification conventions are underway. And so that's significant because 9 have ratified, but 2 of the largest, most important states still have yet to ratify. And in Virginia, New Hampshire's ratification does give the Federalists in Virginia